So let's move into the band hall. Now, I think the majority of the technology we had in the band hall when I was in school was some way to record the band. Whether it was one of those flat, um, I can't remember the fancy name, starts with a P, that kind of a mic, or two stereo mics off on the side. We had some old, heavy wooden speakers hanging, so he could drop the needle on a record player and let us hear a recording with all the scratches. But I assume we've advanced from that at this point. Maybe.
No. No.
Depends on where you are, I guess.
And Wiley, we just use wax cylinders. But yeah, my first band hall, my first year teaching, we had a microphone that looked like it'd been in some kind of honky tonk for about 50 years with an old battered cord with notches in it where you could actually see the wire. And that was connected to a reel to reel.
I think I've recorded a reel to reel before.
That was my recording system. And I used it because I could show them their bad releases by playing the reel to reel backwards. Think about that for a second. I'd record them and play the music backwards, like, satanic, kind of thing. Remember those days?
Mike Lenny is king.
Rock music, it's satanic, the devil's speaking to the kids. But they can hear the bad release points because now the release points become the attacks. But
you know what? I think that's brilliant. I would have not thought of that.
I was taught that by Greg Miller from Iowa Park.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. It worked as a kids. It immediately go, oh my, that's not good. Because it would, yeah. So no, that's the release. We're playing the music backwards on the reel to reel, But yeah, so that's where we started. But now it's like, when we designed the Performing Arts Center at Wiley, they kind of, you know how it is. They kind of cut some corners. You know what I mean? And so I think one of the corners they cut was having as good a sound system as they probably should have. But then you go over to like Allen High School, and theirs is set up to where if they do a Broadway musical comes through town with the 3 semis, they can hook in on the outside of the Performing Arts Center, and they can run their entire system through the Allen Performing Arts Center, and to the point of where they have the baffles set up to where they're preset for their jazz band. So it's like number 53 is scene for jazz band. So the operator just goes 53, and all the clouds and baffles on the stage move, mechanically, and they set the acoustics for it, and all the proper mics drop down out of the ceiling and so forth. So things have come a long way. So I guess what I'm asking with that long diatribe is, where do we find a good balance in between for our normal 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A band directors out there? What would be a good system for them to put in their band hall?
Listen, I do this all the time, obviously in middle schools and in high schools all over the place. It's kind of the same conversation we had. What do you want to do with it? Although we already know what you need to do with it, and we can kind of guide you going that direction. And then, do you have the money to do it the right way, or what I consider to be the right way?
Mm-hmm.
But now this is not as bad because you're not trying to mic a bunch of percussion instruments and things of that nature. So these days, most directors, and I'll kind of give you a flaw with this, if it's hooked up wrong. If it's hooked up correctly, it's great. Most directors want, 2 speakers in the front and 2 speakers in the back. And they think in their mind that they want all 4 speakers coming on at the same time. Realistically, that's not really what you want, because you've got some cancellation going on, frequency cancellation, things of that nature. And you're not trying to set up a surround sound type system in a band hall. Now, you can set one up if you want to watch a movie or something. That's different. If you're going to have a movie night and you want it to be like a true surround sound, that's fine. But that's not really what we're doing. Most people want their rear speakers to have the metronome going through there,
mm-hmm.
because they say, hey, I want this back in the back next to my percussion section.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been told. I'm not a director.
No, that's exactly how you should do it. Plus, it keeps it out of my ear.
Well, right. But you're not going to have the metronome going through all 4 speakers.
Correct.
You don't want it going through 4 speakers. You only want it going through 2 speakers.
And I would dare say, if you've got decent speakers back there, I would not run a Met through them. We would always find some trash, garbage speaker to run the Met
Just
through.
set your
'cause
Long Ranger up.
It's going to fry that ping, ping, ping. That's going to fry a good speaker
It
eventually.
it
least I think
depends.
it will.
It depends on the speaker and if it's set up correctly. And you're correct.
If I set it up, it's going to fry the speaker.
But most people want it going through those back speakers.
Yes.
So, we run that through there. If they're going to have playback music, it's going to come through the front speakers. And then you've got to so you've got 4 speakers. You've got an amplifier that is going to control each speaker individually. Okay. You could set it up as the rear speakers if you want to, and then as the front speakers, and that's just 2 channels. But here again, it's not really the right way. You're doing it the right way if you have everything on an independent control. So 1 amplifier per speaker. And somebody says, well, why don't you want to use powered speakers? Because I don't want to crawl up on scaffolding or get a lift or whatever if I have a powered speaker problem.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the problems are not with the speakers themselves. Most of the problems are with the electronics in the speakers. So you want the electronics down in your rack where it's easy to get to, and you can go get in there and troubleshoot really quick or fix something really quick there, as opposed to really interrupting class and having to get up at height to fix a powered speaker problem.
And that's a good band hack right there. I've never heard that before. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
the electronics out from behind the speakers, put the electronics where you can get your hands on them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now that's better from our and frankly, it's better from your standpoint. If there is a problem, like I say, the speakers themselves, the actual speakers, very seldom have a problem.
Yeah.
Very
What about the baskets and the cones and
right.
That I saw in a band hall was they had the electronics set up at the front of the band hall in a black cabinet. But then if you walked around the deal into the music library, there was a door you could open up, and it was the back of the rack.
Oh, yeah.
So they never even had to open the rack. If something was going wrong, they just went back there and opened that door, and they would look at it and kind of figure out what's going on. So I just thought I'd throw that in there. There's all kinds of ways you can circumvent it. But yeah, the thing I like the best on my system, which I don't know if directors do this. I had a percussion guy that was really into electronics, and he said, "Can I set up the band hall to where we can record them in rehearsal and play it straight back at them immediately?" And it was like, I think that would be pretty handy, and it was really handy. So, have you ever done one like that, Tim? Where I had I had a remote control on the stand, so I could just, without even being known, I could reach down and push that, and we could record that section. Now, guys, listen to that.
Yeah.
And it would come right back through the speakers. So if you have a chance to work with someone who knows what they're doing, like Tim, and sets this up, I would say that's a feature that seems extraordinarily bougie, but is very, very useful.
But it's really not. And these days, it's super easy
digital,
to do with the digital mixers and things like that these days.
Oh, so it's not as fancy as I thought it was. Just don't do it.
It used to be.
Okay.
I mean, it used to be. You've been retired a while, so
hey, yeah. I'm not sure. I'm getting really old, but my bedtime and my dinner time are getting dangerously close to each other.
I saw that.
But go ahead, Tim. You're right. I've been retired 8 years now.
So these days, it is pretty easy to make that happen, and we're just using a good quality stereo mic. I'm not trying to separate the microphones. So let me tell you something about recordings, okay?
He's getting mad now.
You're saying I saw the finger wag.
I'm telling you, this bothers me. And I understand why they do it. I just don't agree with it in certain circumstances. So where are your ears? They're like
They're on the sides of my head.
6 inches apart, 7, whatever it is. Okay. And then I see these guys that try to set up uh, a stereo recording system that the microphones are 10 feet apart. That's not
Not how
how
we hear.
you that's
Yeah.
not how you hear.
Well, that's a good point to bring out. I've seen them where they recorded and they used a mannequin head, and they mounted the. I'm serious. It's more of a joke than anything. But
Oh, well.
they'd raise up the stand and there'd be this mannequin head with these microphones on it.
That's kind of funny.
But yeah, but I think that's a great point because you're right. Because I was one of those people. It was like, well, I'm going to set up these microphones. I'm going to put one over on this side of the stage in the auditorium and one stage left, and we're going to record. But you're exactly right. That's not how our brain hears music or
Right.
hears sound. You know,
All right. So, Tim, I'm going to ask you this. I see all these setups, these handheld stereo, where they call it an XY, or the mics point across each other, or
Right.
little Zoom things.
what do you recommend? What should we do as opposed to each side of the band hall?
Listen, I don't have a problem with that. And Audio Technica makes a great stereo mic where you have it, and then right in the center, it's got a microphone on this side and a microphone on the other side. And Crown used to make one,
Mhm.
and that was a super popular microphone. And the whole thing was about this size, but what it did, it had slants on it, and the microphones were right here,
Right.
about
That's that
the
piezo
same,
mic I was trying to describe.
Right.
Yeah.
about
Little
the
trapezoid
same
looking.
width as what your ears are.
Mhm.
So it's a lot more accurate if you're talking about a good quality microphone and having it. Not to mention, it's a lot easier if they're closer together.
Right.
Right. I mean, I'm talking
stand.
about for yeah, you can either put a stand up, or typically we mount them. Now, when you get into the mounting, you start talking about, okay, well, do I want it on the wall? Each one just depends on the situation of what the wall is made of, and what's going to be allowed in the school. Sometimes schools just like, yeah, I don't want you in the ceiling, or I don't want you in the wall, whatever it might be. You have to adapt for that kind of stuff, but you
Right.
want it to come off just a little bit.
Back
So
in the day, didn't we used to see like pieces of plexiglass with a piezo mic mounted to the
attached to them. Yep.
Yeah.
You did.
Good, bad, indifferent?
Yeah, that's the same principle as that Crown mic that I'm talking about.
Right. I
That-
just think that technology is advancing so fast. If there's something better, tell us what we should do.
Well, listen, we get absolutely fantastic recordings out of just the Audio Technica. I'm talking about a good quality, not.
Right.
It's not cheap. It's $1,000 microphone.
You're not talking entry level. Yeah.
No. Mounted in a good spot where you don't want it right up against a hard wall. So, you see people mount their microphones on this back wall. Well, and the back wall is cinder block. That's not a great place to mount it unless you're going to put some sound absorption behind it, so you're not getting a bunch of reflection coming at that microphone from the back wall.
Okay.
So
when you're saying the back wall, you're talking about behind the director.
I'm
as
talking about
opposed to,
it. If you had to do it behind the director, there's a lot of people that do that just because that's the only place they've got to do it.
Mhm.
Or, they put up a stand behind the director because they don't have something that's permanently mounted.
Yeah.
And you got to put it somewhere. And you don't want it to be out in the middle of the band. It's got to be pointed at the band, and it's got to be where you're going to pick up everybody.
and I would think at a certain depth, you need some depth between the front row and the mic.
Yeah, and one of the ways that you correct is when you raise that microphone up. It's sort of like a choir mic. I don't know if you know how a choir mic works. You want a choir microphone, I'm talking about like a church choir microphone or
Those
something of
pencil
this
mics.
nature.
Yeah.
Those little bitty ones. You've got to have them in front of the front row. But if you have them hanging too low, all you're going to hear is the front row.
Mhm.
Right.
So what you have to do is it's a relationship process, but you need to know the specs of the microphone. So you raise that microphone up in order to get the people from the back rows, just like you're getting the people from the front rows. So you're intentionally making that front row a greater space to make sure that you get the people. It's the same principle with
Yeah.
with
And
this.
and for band directors out there, a lot of times I'll go into clinic a band in concert season, and there's a natural creep factor of the setup as it creeps to the front of the band hall. And I always tell them, said, how can you even hear your band? You've got flute players or flute, foot joint is almost touching the wall. They're so close that because the percussion will keep pushing the band.
Mhm.
Yeah, won't
They're
they?
like a lizard growing in a box. They'll keep pushing the band further and further to the front. So they've got to make sure, band directors, make sure you set your band up as far back away from the wall behind you as you possibly can. There's got to be depth behind you in order to hear the band properly. And I would assume the same thing for the microphones. So the microphones record, and for those band directors, we're not looking at recording. We're not trying to enter the Grammys or something and try to win some award with our recordings. It's an educational recording, but man, it sure makes a big difference if the kids hear a good quality recording, or if you listen to your rehearsal and hear a good quality, or like, I don't know, yesterday I listened to 7 different concert band recordings and gave critique because they're just trying to work on fundamentals. And some were done with an iPhone, and it's hard for me to discern. But, so I'm not sure if this is just the poor quality of the recording or the band doing this, or then some of them are just ultra crystal clear. You could tell they had a really good system set up, and you could hear a kid breathe. You know what I mean? In the band, you could tell everything that happened. So
It's funny.
worth
We
the
used to
money.
we used to tell people all the time, digital is awesome, but you need to prepare yourself the first time you listen to your group on a digital recording because you hear everything.
Yes.
So
Yeah. It's like looking in the mirror. Band directors will not like to record their bands because the recording tells the truth,
that's true.
and they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it.
Okay.
I'm going to jump back to something because of what you said. When you're talking about field stuff and you're training those kids after you've set up your field system, those kids need to be quiet because everything, those marimba players and xylophone, everything is going to go through the sound system.
Those condenser mics.
Everything they say could possibly be picked up on those microphones. They need to be careful.
Yeah, it's funny because the kids on the field probably didn't hear it, but there's a marimba players working with the clarinets one time on the field, and it took forever. And you could hear this marimba player go, "I wish the hell they'd figure out what they're doing back there so we can play again." I go, "Hey, that picks up through the sound system." And I go, "Oh." It could have been worse, but it's like the preacher who has his mic on when he goes to use the bathroom before the service.
Yep.
You hear the toilet flush.
Okay. I'm going back into facilitator mode. I'm looking at what Tim, I appreciate where we've gone so far, but could you kind of most generic sense, what am I looking for? I mean, we've talked about mics and placement, but and he asked about playback as opposed to just recording. Can you just give us a generic itemized list of things we need to look for to put in our system to make these things happen?
Off the fly. So
Yeah.
you've got your power. When you've got your power coming in, you want a power conditioner or a power sequencer. Okay, that's what starts the whole process. So it's one switch, and it sequences on and it sequences off when you do it.
Okay, I'm going to pause you because I think I'm hearing something. I want to make sure I'm hearing right. I think the more portable you make the system, the better you are. So you build it into a rack, and then when that rack is going to have a power conditioner, because then you can use it in the auditorium, you can use it in your band hall, and a lot of people put, what am I trying to say? They have wall mount brackets that they plug their mics in or they plug whatever in. Wrong or right? Recommend that or not?
We do both.
I personally like mine where it's not portable.
Yeah. So here's the deal.
Because I don't want First Baptist coming and borrowing it for their youth.
And that is the deal
Because
right
it's hard
there.
to say, no, I don't care about Jesus. You know, I
That
care about my microphones. It's hard to argue.
if you're trying to get them to spend the money and you say, hey, we can make this portable, then sometimes the administration goes, yeah, okay, we'll spend the money on that. You keep it in the band hall. But if we need it in the gym,
Yeah.
we need to be able to roll it down to the gym. And then all you got to do is plug the speakers in and hit the on button and you're up and rolling. That is very factual. Then we've got the people that really don't want it to go anywhere else. And if they've got the funds for it to stay there, then you need to wall mount it permanently in the band hall.
Those big little cabinet boxes. Is that what you?
Yeah. Yeah. And leave it there.
Yeah, I think I said this in the past one, but we just went ahead and bought a really inexpensive portable system in Anvil cases. And when people wanted to borrow our sound system, we rolled that out of the closet. They didn't know any better. It had mic stands, microphones, mixing board. Everything was self-contained, and we could care less if that fell off a cliff. We didn't really care. But we just used that as our buffer for when the admin needed something for the volleyball or whatever. You know,
Right.
but you're right, Tim. If you make that deal with them, you've made your deal with the devil. You're going to have to stand behind it. Whatever big system you have, you're going to have to roll that whole system down. And some staff members going to have to be in charge of doing that, because you can't trust the librarian who helps with the volleyball team to run your sound system. You know?
No, and we do tell people this: only the rack is going to go anywhere. We go ahead and install the speakers. There's plugs on the wall. And so they just literally, like you said, Derek, they'll just plug in out of the back of their sound system into the wall for the recording mic that you've got mounted and for the speakers that they've got mounted. But I much prefer because of some other things, and let me tell you what some of those other things are. For instance, I like we talked about this. I like the Yamaha TF. You know, it's not too much. It's plenty for what anybody's going to use in a school setting. And if you use the TF rack, you've got controls on the actual mixer. It's a screen that's built in. And so you could do everything off of that, or you could hook it up with your iPad and you could do everything on your music stand with an iPad. So referencing what Mike said, you could hit record, stop record, hit playback. What you don't want to do is create a feedback loop to where you're trying to record and play it back at the same time. That's a no-no. But other than that, so you've got your power conditioner, you're going to have your mixer, you're going to have your amplifier, which ideally you would want to have at least one channel per speaker. So you want 4 channels of amplification. You want DSP, so you either want, which is digital signal processing, because you do things like you quote tune the room. So you want the room to sound right according to national standards. You don't want somebody going in there and just changing the EQs. They'll have their own opportunity to EQ each channel if they want to do that, but you want the room to be correct. So you do that through a DSP, either built into the amplifier or somewhere. Most of the ones that we do are built into the amplifiers. You want to have some type of a Bluetooth thing, so you can just, if you wanted to hook up your phone and just play it real quick, that's fine. Obviously, you want inputs, computer input, you want a microphone input. A lot of directors are going to wearing a microphone during rehearsal. I don't know if you have seen that, or teachers are doing that. We've been asked to do that in general classrooms as well. So they're all wearing a wireless microphone, and they're all going through the speakers. So there's no excuse for some kid to say, I didn't hear something. And they're not blasting them out. They're just It's just
yeah.
amplifying their voice a little
Cool
bit.
setup, and
Right.
some of it's art recommendations for certain kids. You know,
Yeah, there's
it's
some classrooms that
yeah.
have to have that.
But yeah, I ran into that at a local high school, and it was very effective. I mean, like you
Yeah.
said, it didn't blast them out; it just gave kind of an ambiance to it, where you just hear this voice speaking. And plus, when you're telling kids to do something, and if it's at a higher level of intensity, that gets old real quick to the kids. You know what I mean? It's just a little more soothing to be talking to the kids at a normal volume instead of using what we always call our band director voice. You know.
Right. Um, so you got some type of a Bluetooth receiver built in somewhere. I've got people that still want CD players. I have churches ask this all the time. Can you put a cassette deck in there? Okay. If if I can still find a cassette deck, I'll put a cassette. And these days, if you're putting a cassette deck somewhere, it's high dollar because people don't make that anymore.
Yeah.
That's not something you can just go buy. So it's going to be a professional deck that's 1,500, $2,000 just for cassette deck. I'm like, just tell them to change the format.
Yeah, when I got to Wiley, there was actually an 8-track component
Oh man,
that was hooked
Wish-
into the system. It might still be there.
I
That
would
was kinda
love
funny
that.
because I've got
No,
I've got
they've
some
got
old
a
8 tracks, and I went in there and chunk. I'd put an old Kansas or a Kiss 8-track and show the kids. They just thought I was in possession of some modern technology.
yeah, that's awesome.
Uh,
They do not have that at Wiley anymore, by
yeah,
the way,
they've moved up since I left. Yeah,
because we put in a new system.
cool.
But I do think that digital is probably the easiest way to go
Yeah.
as far as quick recording and quick playback. And you
Absolutely.
don't have to rewind all the time.
Mhm.
So, okay, I interrupted your thought process there. So, power conditioner, mixer, all the things you said so far. I do want to clarify when you said power amp. Typically, each power amp has 2 output, so you'd need 2 power amps if you have 4 speakers.
Yeah, and that's not the case anymore. We've got power amps that have 4 channels, 8 channels. I mean, we can do whatever.
Cool.
So it's
And I assume it's conditioned power coming out. That it knows what to send to what port. It equally distributes the power. Maybe that's a better way to say it.
well, it does it based on what we tell it to do.
There you go.
Yeah.
So do I, based on what you tell me to do.
Michael, listen, Michael gets on his computer and he goes in there and does all the settings, and we can either lock it or leave it unlocked. And when I say lock it, I mean we could password protect it or whatever we need to do.
Yeah, I recommend that for any application in any high school band.
Well,
Lock it down.
Oh, Lord help us. I have one
Okay.
question for you, Tim, before
Sure.
we kind of wrap things up. Would it be better to spend more money on mics or more money on speakers if you had to make a choice?
now
For the
when you're talking about mics, are you talking about the indoor system?
indoor system, yeah, for like indoor system, what would be your preference if it was your band hall?
If
Or
it was
your
my band
music
hall, I
room?
would make sure that I had great speakers.
Okay.
So, and this is one of those deals. The weakest link, if your weakest link is your speakers, then you'll never be able to hear what you're supposed to hear.
Oh, I hadn't thought of it that way, but you're right. You could have the world's greatest microphone through a crappy speaker, and it's
And
gonna sound like
you
a
wouldn't
crappy
know it,
speaker.
right?
Yeah.
So you need to have,
So put your
Good.
money in the speaker.
well, I would prefer to have better speakers than a better microphone, but you're also talking about 2 to 4 speakers. And listen, I do enough to these. I can tell you that the band hall systems that I'm probably talking about are going to be $15,000 to $20,000.
Yeah.
I'm not holding myself to that, and you can obviously get them for less than that. We can dial it down, and I'm talking about including labor installed. I'm not talking about just the price of the system. So
This is one of my favorite things. Though. A lot of people think, how hard can it be? And they try to short circuit that and do things themselves. And I'm just telling you, it's worth the money to get it done right by somebody who you can go back and say, what am I doing wrong? Because they know exactly what system you have and they know exactly where to troubleshoot it. And they usually set it up for you. They read the room before they leave.
Wait, you're gonna spend $1,000 to $1,500 on a good speaker. One good speaker. It's not something that people need to mince words about. Sure, can you get a $300 speaker? Absolutely, you can get a $300 speaker. It's going to sound like a $300 speaker.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you're getting it. It's you're going to limit yourself to the quality of product that you put in there. It's
And I'm not just saying this because, we're sponsored by Intune Music and we've got Tim Jones here, but most of the problems I see in band halls and on the marching fields are when they go wholesale and they get some company to just send them all the equipment and they try to put it together themselves. And then I tell you what, then it's a whole different world, regardless of what music store it is. When something happens in a rehearsal, and they'll call the road rep right then and they'll talk them through it and they'll FaceTime it and they'll put their phone up to the deal and they'll talk to them. It's worth the money. It's worth the money to get the expertise behind it because there's too much going on with arguing with principals and band parents and getting kids to do what they need to do. You don't need to become an electronics expert, and you probably can't because you don't do it all the time. So,
just quite frankly,
for all music stores out there in this
quite frankly, the install department is up to date on the newest technology and how it works by nature of what they do every day, as opposed to a director who thinks about it once every 10 years.
Yeah, and I thought I was pretty well up to date on things, and I've got a whole list now in front of me of things I had no clue about. So, yeah, just use people for their expertise. It's pay the money, pay the money for it.
Okay, Tim, best practices. Do we have a unity we have to set anymore? Do we just hold up our phone and hope it records at a good level, and then when we're playing it back, you know what I mean? Is there anything we need to do in process of recording?
The biggest thing when you're doing a recording, you just need to make sure that you're not clipping. You don't want to clip so if you've got, and anytime, these guys come in and they record when you're doing UIL competitions, they come in and record, or you hire a professional recorder to come in and record a band concert to the public or whoever, so you can give that tape to somebody. I call it a tape. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm an old dude.
Tapes. I call them tapes too.
Yeah.
So you take your 8-track.
So you take your 8-track.
But the click doesn't happen at the wrong time.
The biggest problem that we have with recording is during the loudest part, overdriving the microphone, which is going to clip it.
All that distortion, yeah.
And it's going to either just kind of sound like a loud honk or in certain situations, it kind of sounds like a truck horn nearly going off in the recording, and it will absolutely ruin everything that you've done.
Yeah.
Actually, here, not to bring up Andrews again, but it sure seems like a lot of stuff happens in Andrews. I remember one year when they were doing the recording and they didn't do the recording right. And this was a contest. And they had to go back and do it. They had to bring that band back and perform again later in the day just so they could get a recording.
Yeah. And I tell you what, you're so on point with that because there was one year we went to contests in Little Anson, Texas. And some guy showed up to set up his electronics to record, but we always had a backup recording. You know what I mean? Because they would set up there hundreds of thousands of dollars or whatever, and it was the most crappy recording you've ever heard in your life. Everything's clipping, everything's bad. We entered our tape that was recorded with Luke McMillan standing at the back of the auditorium, holding a $200 Zoom recorder above his head, and that won 5th place in state honor band competition at the state level. We
Yeah.
use that recording. And so that, just because they have a lot of equipment doesn't mean they know what they're doing.
Right.
So we'd always have it. Sometimes it'd be a band parent. I just hand them the Zoom recording. Say, can you just hold this up while we play? And said, you don't have to turn it on or off. You just turn it on, let it run the whole concert, then turn it off and hand it back. And, and it was, those recordings were generally better than the ones with the high dollar mics and stuff because of the operator. So, and sometimes you can run into problems at contests because the local band director feels like they know how to run the sound system. And it'd be like me trying to run the sound system. That's not a smart decision. Okay.
Yeah. They just need to hire the professionals
Hire the
and
professionals. Yeah.
let them go in and do it.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Well, for sake of getting through everything, is there anything else about an indoor system? And because you said it, at a high school, you're probably going to have 2 systems, it sounds like, one in the auditorium and one in your band hall. But does the band director need to have say-so in what goes on in the auditorium if you can? You understand what I'm saying? Because if that's where you're performing and you're trying to do a public performance recording.
But then it's a matter of compromise because theater arts will have a different viewpoint of what needs to happen in the auditorium. So you got to kind of figure out can't we all just get along, the choir and in a bigger
One of my favorite things about hanging out with Mr. Jones is sometimes I'm around when all the different people at one school, there's probably 6 different people that call him saying, hey, I'm working with this sound system. And he has to know, Tim knows all the different sound systems they have: gymnasium, auditorium, band hall, choir room, orchestra. It's fun to listen to him go, okay, now on that system. But everybody that calls him thinks that they're the expert and they're mad at everybody else that's ever used the system. So I'm just kind of throwing this out there. What's a best practice, or do we as the music educators just kind of accept that the cafeteria, auditorium, gymnasium is never going to be exactly what we want and bring our own equipment to record? I don't know.
Well, it depends. You get into the size of the school, and it makes all the difference.
Oh yeah.
The bigger schools are a bigger problem, but I will say this: they've all got their own systems, and in most of these schools that I've dealt with that have listened, they've let us put in the same, maybe not the same unit exactly, but for instance, the Yamaha digital mixers. So if you've got one Yamaha digital mixers, you pretty much know how to use the other Yamaha digital mixers, whether it's a rack mount or whether it's a 16 channel or whether it's, a 32 channel or you've expanded it to 64 or whatever it might be. It's the same basic software and it works. So somebody from the band could go into the auditorium and know how to use the mixer.
They're homogeneous. They're kind of a same system.
Okay.
So that always makes it easier when something like that happens. And Mike is right. Theater arts wants one thing and the band wants something else. And the principal actually just wants everybody to get along. And he wants it to work when he turns on the microphone.
Yeah, he just wants to do a school assembly.
Right. That's all he cares about is, does the microphone work and does the projector work? And do I get sound through the system when I turn the projector on? That's what they care about.
Yeah.
So,
anyway. Okay. Well, I think that we have at least touched on lots of different aspects of technology. And I know that Tim's amenable and Mike, now that he's got all these notes he can refer to.
I can really pretend like I know what I'm doing.
Ask Mike at intunemusic.com or call one of us. We're glad to talk to you if you are thinking, how do I fix this? Or, I'm just starting out. Let's get one going. So appreciate both of you taking time to help us with this today. Again, I feel like sometimes my job in this whole deal is just to listen and go, now, if I was a director, what would I ask about that? Or you sparked this question. So I appreciate you guys allowing me to be kind of off the cuff with it. And again, need be, we get some more questions, we'll do it again. But
Cool.
y'all have great weeks, and we'll talk again soon.
Y'all have a good Thanksgiving. I won't see y'all before then.
I was coming to your house.
Oh, well,
No, no. Have a good Thanksgiving, guys.
I think we're doing steak this year, believe it or not. I think we're doing something different.
I'm looking for punishment. I'm going to the Kansas City Dallas game.
You are
Oh.
looking for punishment.
I don't think you're looking for punishment. I think that's going to be fun.
Well, it's going to be kind of a sideline thing, but my grandsons all have Dallas Cowboy jerseys, so I bought a Patrick Mahomes KC jersey. So I'm going to wear a Kansas City jersey just to hack them off.
Oh my gosh. We're gonna have to kick you off the podcast, brother.
Yeah, well,
And it's your podcast.
it is. Yeah, it's going to be Ask Derek next week.
Ask Mike, what the heck are you thinking?
Ask Mike, but he's not here anymore.